Welcome to the Midday Report, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Strzemska. And we begin with the latest from the Middle East. Israeli forces continue to strike Lebanon, launching a series of attacks across the southern and eastern parts of the country and targeting the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Our correspondent Oscar is in Beirut with the latest.
Both Israel and Hezbollah have reported trading strikes over the last 24 hours, with the Lebanese Ministry of Health putting the death toll as of Tuesday morning at 486 Lebanese citizens killed by the fighting. Now, the Lebanese Ministry of Health does not delineate between combatants and non-combatants, but among those dead are a priest in southern Lebanon and also at least 40 women and 80 children among those who have been killed so far. The Lebanese authorities also report that some 700,000 citizens of Lebanon have fled the fighting in parts of southern Lebanon and South Beirut, seeking shelter in other parts of the country. There are also fears that this conflict could spread beyond the borders of Lebanon, with the Syrian army reporting that overnight there were clashes on the Syria-Lebanese border between Hezbollah and the Syrian army. So the situation continues here in Lebanon, with no sign of stopping. Drones frequently heard buzzing overhead over the last 24 hours, Israeli drones, that is, with Hezbollah continuing to report attacks across the border inside Israel. I'm Oscar reporting from Beirut for TVP World.
US President Donald Trump has made contradictory statements about when the war with Iran might end, while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced on Tuesday that, quote, "Today will be our most intense day of strikes inside Iran." Meanwhile, Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister says Tehran's first condition for a ceasefire is a guarantee that no further aggression will take place. Here's a roundup of events on day 11 of the war.
The Iranian capital, Tehran, early Tuesday came under some of the most intense attacks since the start of the war, with missiles striking the east, south and west of the city. US President Donald Trump told a press conference that the war may end soon, but not this week.
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that.
But on social media, he warned Iran not to stop the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, writing the US would hit the country 20 times harder in retaliation. As video emerged of a Tomahawk missile hitting a girls' school in southern Iran, which reportedly killed 150 on the first day of the war, Trump said the incident is under investigation.
Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, sold and used by other countries, that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
Sirens sounded across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv on Tuesday as Trump's words resulted in fresh drone and missile attacks from Tehran. While smoke rose above Lebanon's capital, Beirut, Israel continuing its strikes on the Iran-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah. In Bahrain, one person was killed and others injured in an Iranian drone attack. Eyewitness footage shows fire burning near the United Arab Emirates consulate in Erbil, Iraq, late on Monday, after 3 drones were downed. After strikes took out Iran's leadership and damaged its ballistic missiles, experts say the US and Israel will closely monitor any attempt to restart a nuclear program when the war ends.
One thing that the US administration and Israel has made pretty clear, that those elements of the nuclear programs that might be potentially a prime targets for the weaponization element of the Iranian program is always going to be watched very closely. And if there's suspicions, the US is not ruling out future strikes on those.
Meanwhile, on Monday night, more Poles were returned home by the Polish armed forces from the Middle East. A total of 7,000 citizens have now flown back to Poland via commercial and military flights.
Oil prices fell to around $90 a barrel after comments from Donald Trump suggesting the war with Iran could end very soon. But the consequences of the conflict go beyond crude supplies. Analysts warn it could also disrupt the global food supply.
Thank you very much.
Sometimes a very short answer to a reporter's question is all it takes to move global markets.
On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
You're talking
but soon.
about days?
I think so.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon.
Trump's remark calmed investors around the world, with the price of oil dropping to around $90 per barrel after shortly hitting $120 on Monday. But more volatility is to be expected as the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point ferrying almost 1/5 of the world's oil supply, remains effectively closed. Trump has offered to protect ships sailing through the passage, but the global shipping industry is not buying it. This brings us to another problem. Gulf states are major producers of sulfur, a key ingredient of fertilizers, and urea, a fertilizer itself.
In the short term, farmers should be well stocked for the spring application season. But in the longer term, for example, for summer crops such as corn, the situation might be tighter.
This will immediately push prices up as fertilizer is responsible for a big share of crop production costs.
It depends on the crop, but when it comes to cereals, it's around 40%.
And it's not only cereals that are in danger. Rapeseed, fruits and vegetables can be affected too. Europe gets around 1/3 of its fertilizers from Egypt and Algeria. The longer shortages will diminish such an advantage.
Now to Paris, where the nuclear energy summit is underway. As global oil prices remain high, French President Emmanuel Macron says he hopes to make nuclear a central pillar of Europe's future energy security. Joining me with more on this is our correspondent, Alex Carrier. Alex, how important could nuclear energy be for Europe, especially in the context of the volatile oil markets we've seen in the last couple of days?
Well, good afternoon, Sally. They will be important. We've seen that volatility. We've seen energy prices soaring, not just now, but since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with Europe weaning itself off hydrocarbons, fossil fuels from Russia as well. That means an alternative is needed, and one pushed, of course, by France, because France is a big nuclear producer, is nuclear power. Not to everybody's liking, of course, but it is still nuclear power because, as we've heard from the European Commission here in Brussels, those countries less reliant on oil and gas are paying lower energy prices across the board. That is in the present and in the past. Emmanuel Macron in Paris today making the case for the future, saying that nuclear power could power data centers, which in turn powers AI, powers future technology, trying to boost not just energy in Europe, but competitiveness. Now, some will be wondering, yes, but some major country, one major country in particular in Europe, has effectively dumped all of its nuclear power generation capacity. Germany in particular, others followed suit in the last few years. On that, we heard from Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President.
In 1990, 1/3 of Europe's electricity came from nuclear. Today, it's only close to 15%. This reduction in the share of nuclear was a choice. And in hindsight, it was a strategic mistake for Europe to turn its back on a reliable, affordable source of low-emission power.
A strategic mistake. Ursula von der Leyen was, of course, in the German government when that denuclearization push happened. She is now, many years later, calling it a strategic mistake. It will be a boon for France if Europe goes more nuclear. Of course, France is one of the major producers of nuclear power. It has the second largest fleet of nuclear reactors in the world after the United States. So, of course, there will be a push from Emmanuel Macron to do that. But as we know, nuclear, not to everybody's liking.
Monsieur, dame, le nucléaire, c'est has-been. Le nucléaire. Non, non, attention. Messieurs, pas de. Un deuxième. La Russie. Pourquoi on achète de l'uranium à la Russie?
So clearly, there will always be protests when it comes to nuclear, be it on environmental grounds, be it on security, safety grounds. But as fossil fuels are more expensive, less reliable, and of course not future-proof at all, France and others will push for nuclear in Europe. Sally.
Alex Getty reporting from Paris. Thank you, much appreciated. And now on a domestic note, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk says it would be a serious mistake if the country's president decides to veto the SAFE program aimed at strengthening Poland's defense capabilities. Speaking to reporters, Tusk said the initiative is crucial for improving security across the European Union.
We've already received information that the Polish president has decided to veto the SAFE program. This is very bad news. I'll ask the president directly if this is really the case. It would be an unforgivable mistake. We know full well how much effort Poland has put into creating this program, how much effort we've put into making the European Union understand that defense is the responsibility of all member states, not just Poland. We have an appointment with Polish Defense Minister Kosiniak-Kamysz, our colleagues and generals, right after the cabinet meeting to prepare a plan B in case of a presidential veto.
The Ukraine-Russia peace talks planned for this week have been postponed, according to Kyiv, at the request of the United States. Ukrainian officials warned that the delay could play directly into Russia's hands. This next report looks at how the widening crisis in the Middle East is affecting the war in Ukraine.
After Washington shifted its attention to the war in Iran, Ukraine now finds itself in a tight spot as its path to lasting peace has stalled. The Ukrainian president has announced that the talks have been postponed, adding that Moscow is using Middle East instability to push its war.
At the moment, the partners' priority and all their attention are focused on the situation around Iran. And because of this, the meeting that had been planned for this week is being postponed at the behest of the American side.
European Commissioner Antonio Costa reiterated Zelensky's warnings, acknowledging that, at the moment, the Middle East war benefits only one country, Russia.
It gains new resources to finance its war against Ukraine as energy prices rise. It profits from the diversion of military capabilities that could otherwise have been sent to support Ukraine.
Meanwhile, all the warning signs are proving to be true. In the past 24 hours, Russia launched nearly 140 drones, wounding at least 33 people, hitting the Dnipro and Kharkiv regions. Attacks were carried out at the same time that across the globe, US President Donald Trump initiated a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The call was described as productive and constructive, with Trump noting that Putin wanted to help with Iran.
I said you could be more helpful by getting the Ukraine-Russia war over with. That would be more helpful. But we had a very good talk, and he wants to be very constructive.
After the call with Putin, in which they discussed how global energy markets are in flux, Trump said there might be a reconsideration of sanctions that might benefit the Kremlin.
We're also waiving certain oil-related sanctions to reduce prices. So we have sanctions on some countries. We're going to take those sanctions off till this.
And indeed, Putin and Trump have already held multiple phone calls. So far, none of the calls have produced any progress toward bringing peace to Ukraine.
We keep hearing that Putin's ready to make a deal, and he always walks away or prevaricates or does something.
Trump's rhetoric towards Zelensky remains ambivalent. He has chided the Ukrainian president multiple times, calling him an obstacle to peace who should accept Russia's demands. Experts say the problem lies with Trump's personal view of Zelensky.
It's personal for Trump, and he knows how to carry a grudge just about as long as anybody possibly can.
Despite all that, the Ukrainian side remains ready to meet at any moment in a format that could finally end Russia's full-scale invasion.
And with this, we conclude the Midday Report. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.